muscle. So again, I would not go into this, but these things are required. Time is less, so I am bypassing this. But these, all the things are required. Okay. Now that was in short. I wanted to highlight that we are not seeing the hidden demon. We are not seeing the shadow of an acute insult. So that is acute heart failure, which is going in parallel with any insult on the body. And that acute heart failure has to be monitored invasively. That is not a clinical suspicion or a clinical evidence. And only when you document it, you will be able to correct things in the proper manner, and that will prevent damage. Now, what happens? What is the chemical pathways behind it? Each slide is a chapter in itself. I am only taking you to the glimpse of the type of pathophysiology involved in acute cardiac insult, which accelerates or which initiates a cascade mechanism of various controlling pathophysiological mechanisms in the body. So the vicious cycle as the mechanical component of myocardial stunning, hibernation and myocardial necrosis takes place. It causes a drop in blood pressure, and that drop in blood pressure activates the baroreceptors and the chemoreceptors and many chemical neurotransmitters, and that initiates a lot of cascading effect. Others are hemodynamic and neurohumoral. Now there is a cardiac dysfunction, there are neurohumoral activation, there is a drop in systemic vascular resistance, there are blood volume changes, there are vascular changes, there are endocrine changes, there are renal changes. They are immediately activated. And biochemical changes. These are the pathophysiology which is activated by any cardiac insult. There are various compensatory mechanisms immediately which starts acting. Now I will just go fast. You all have read it in your MBBS days, but this is just to tell you that so many things starts getting activated whenever there is a hemodynamic insult or a cardiac insult, and they have their own physical, chemical, biochemical and neurological impacts on the rest of the vascular tree, rest of the tissues of the body. The renin-angiotensin system, which will cause renal impact, the angiotensin pathways, the angiotensin 2 pathways, causing damage through all this cascading mechanism, the compensatory neurohumoral activation of vasopressin, activating the baroreceptors and causing peripheral vasoconstrictions, other neurohormones and natriuretic peptides, ANP, DNP, central natriuretic peptides, which are released from various organs, and they have their various effect on the body, whether good or bad, but in fact, there is the loss of discipline in the body as soon as the cardiac insult takes place. And this lack of control and discipline is a deleterious effect in the entire body. From the endothelium is the biggest endocrine organ, all the endothelium releasing factors and the natriuretic peptides and other compensatory mechanism from the central nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, they get activated, causing increase in heart rate and bradycardia and tachycardia and hypotension. They all get cascaded. This is what is happening. Present in some people, not present in some people, but these are so many things which are playing a role as a part of sudden insult to the body, which by and large are deleterious. So I am going very fast through them, just to tell you a glimpse that so many things are getting activated. You cannot quantify them, but they are there, and they are causing every minute a damage to the muscle. So I will go fast on them because I have to come to the main message. All these things get activated by a single factor of drop in the aortic laminar flow. As soon as there is a cardiac insult, the myocardium depresses, the blood pressure comes down, there is a drop in the laminar flow of the aorta. That drop in the laminar flow accelerates everything, the adrenal system, the sympathetic nervous system, the chemoreceptors, the baroreceptors, and everything. So that is the key figure. But that causes what? I will just try to come back. But think a patient who has got an acute MI with repeated VF, or a patient with class T with no flow situation, or a dilated cardiomyopathy patient with refractory to medical management, a patient with malignant BTAC with viral or septic, or a patient with massive MI with silent extension into ADHF. All these things, is there any other option? They are playing a role, so you have to give some support. I am not telling you ECMO, but you have to give some support. Chemical support, inotropes, you know very well, after a given limit is more harmful than beneficial. So you have to look for a mechanical support. Mechanical supports are very, very limited. IBP is weaning off, fading off. Other temporary medical supports are not available. We have left with ECMO. So beyond coronaries, myocardium is at stake. There are local and collateral damages in the heart. There is cardiac dysfunction, inadequate tissue perfusion, systemic derangements, and vicious cycles of various mechanisms. And timely action is very necessary to prevent them from multiplying things into 10 times and 100 times. This is very important concept. Everything is cascaded by a lack of this thing. I will just give you an analogy that what happens if you have a lack of laminar flow. It is like a lane discipline. If you just lose the lane discipline, the result is like this. This is just, you just lose the lane discipline. This is the chaos. This is what happens in aorta. As you lose the laminar flow, there is lot of turbulence. All the ostia of side branches, they get activated. Lot of process gets started.
Like Indian traffic, you mean? Indian roads?
So that was one. And then again, an acute insult and heart failure. Another analogy. This is the famous World Trade Center. Aircraft hitting one floor is like an acute myocardial insult. This is an acute MI or an acute insult to the myocardium, and it cascades into an acute heart failure. That is what happening. A single floor insult collapses the entire building. The acute MI culminates into an acute heart failure or an acute insult. This is the result. It collapses the entire system. That is where we lose muscle, that is where we lose the integrity of the capillary system, and this is the effect. So primary damage and secondary damage. Secondary damage is much more than primary damage, and the only caretaker of secondary damage is support, whether chemical or mechanical. If chemical support have crossed the limit of inotrope score more than 20, then it is causing more damage than good. You have to take care of fluids, you have to take care of inotropes, you have to take care of other diuretics, and also a mechanical support, but you have to do things in time. If other things have got a limited efficacy, then you have to think that you have to go for timely mechanical support. So okay, these two videos I showed. So ultimately, the whole crux is tissue perfusion. The damage comes from periphery, lactates and acid levels and pH, all those things are deteriorating from there. You are managing the central core circulation somehow, but you are unable to overcome the ocean of increasing chemical toxins liberated from the periphery as a result of lack of tissue perfusion. So ultimately we covered three topics: demography, the acute heart failure, and pathophysiology. What is required is need and timing for going for mechanical cardiac support. So heart failure beyond conventional management and mechanical support, circulatory support is a concept. What is the mechanical component of mechanical circulatory support can be different, but as of now, ECMO is a good option. So ignorance and delay to after treat an acute cardiac insult causes secondary collateral damages, and this secondary collateral damage is acute heart failure. So in between acute heart failure and mechanical circulatory support is ECMO, which gives a second chance to live. So between the life and death at a cross point, if you initiate ECMO in time, you save life. Need for ECMO for a cardiac insult, so many things I just mentioned. The place and timing of ECMO is to prevent a cascading effect which is not seen, but it is damaging the tissue at various levels. As far as the armamentarium of treatment is concerned, you thrombolize the patient, to intervene, you give a chemical support or a IVP, and then before biventricular pacing, mechanical support and heart transplant, you initiate ECMO. So ECMO is in between the primary treatment and the tertiary treatment. This is what is the cascade is at NYHA class 4, somewhere here, where you, after initial coronization and in between transplantation and assist device, we have used all chemical mediators, and the combination of mechanical support to transplant is in place. Here is the role of ECMO. This ECMO, according to me, should come down to NYHA class 2 level, because that will prevent all these cascading effects. At the moment, we are initiating ECMO in NYHA class 3 or later, or maybe even class 4. But if it is applied early, it will prevent all this cascading effect, and you will have a better myocardium. The concept is to save myocardium. We are having a great population of heart failure people, and they are as a result of our maybe ignorance, that we are not understanding the pathophysiology going inside. So that is what it is maybe desired. Again, as you see in heart failure, after all the chemical treatment, even if you start CRT therapy, which plateaued in 2002, the benefits of CRT therapy did not exceed 20% of the population, and there was a plateau. So from 2002 onwards, perhaps we do not have anything. Maybe later down the line, after 2010, we are talking of much about heart transplant and artificial heart, but they are practically not affordable in India. And we have not yet started using the help of ECMO in a mechanical circulatory support after where CRT ends. Same diagram here. So mechanical circulatory support, ECMO is a mechanical support to muscle for assist therapy and replacement therapy. This is a very important. This is the only instrument which does replacement therapy. Ventilator is assist mode, IVP is assist mode, and maybe your inotropes and all are assist mode. They will flog the heart only to work, but ECMO is a replacement mode. It will rest to the heart and lungs, and it will give time and place for management. So that is where ECMO stands. In the stages of VAD, ECMO is the first thing, like an ambu bag before a ventilator. The short-term assist device is ECMO. It can be extended to intermediate term, and it can be bridged to long term. And finally, the patient may go to heart transplant or a destination therapy on an artificial heart. That is what is required. So very fast, going through the same thing, which is already discussed in this conference. So these are part of basic training. I am just taking you fast through the components of ECMO, and let us come to a conclusion about this concept. This was just about ECMO. I was just trying to show these figures just to tell you that ECMO is a good thing but not an easy thing. Now this is a picture where you can find that the machine all around the patient is 2 times or 3 times the size of the patient. So that is what is required. There are many strengths in an ECMO circuit, and each is important, and you have to be mindful about it. It is easy, but it is cumbersome. So if you do it diligently, you will be able to do a good ECMO. This is the message, that though ECMO is simple, but it is tedious. This is what the baby is somewhere behind the nurse, and this is because the circuit of the ECMO helping the patient. You can see that these figures are just to tell you, ECMO is not easy. It is not one man's job. It has to be a teamwork. The same thing it is going on. I don't want to take all these things. Okay. Now, conclusion. We have acute heart failure as a new concept after 1990, and we are still sleeping even after 35 years. When way back in 1975, ECMO got started in Western Hemisphere, there is no data from our population. All statistics are from Western Hemisphere, and our figures will be alarming as far as heart failure is concerned. Acute heart failure is the second MI or a secondary MI, and we have to foresee the multi-pronged damage at all axes, and ECMO is one of the alternatives to prevent acute heart failure for causing a silent and an extensive damage more than what we can foresee. It gives rest to the heart by replacement therapy. Time is muscle. It has got a great flexibility to adjust other organs. Very important part of ECMO. It is an instrument for 5 organs. It supports the heart, it supports the lungs, it supports the kidney, it supports the peripheral circulation, and it supports the hematology. If one system is weak, we can scale up other system. If oxygenation is low, we increase the hemoglobin. And in many other ways, ECMO is a very fluid system. It can be many times made adjusted to anything which is going bad in the patient, and that flexibility makes a very powerful tool. It supports the entire body at 5 organ systems, and it is the only machine which helps the tissue perfusion. No other machine helps the tissue perfusion, which is greatly ignored in all types of insect. So the same thing, the incidence of IHD incidence and congestive heart failure prevalence in a population is, I'd say, huge, and we have to be accountable for morbidity and mortality. We see a person living, we stop at that, but we don't see the ejection fraction, it goes out with our treatment. So we have to be accountable for our morbidity results. And role of acute heart failure should begin in emergency department. That is where all the chemical cascade have already started a chemimyonecrosis. And if you don't take care of the chemimyonecrosis, and you take the patient 2 hours later into the cath lab, the damage is already over. So you have to start taking care of the peripheral vascular resistance and the systemic vascular resistance there, and you have to start initiating right fluid or the inotrope at that level. That is where the damage begins, not in the cath lab. So that is very important. If you have to, if possible, try to understand the axis. If not possible, only understand the hemodynamics and make a judicious use of inotropes, fluids and diuretics. That is very important. So there is a sea change in all walks of life. Treat myocardium by ECMO along with coronaries in time with care and concepts, and cost issues are everywhere. Success, volume and performance will override these cost issues. There are equivalent stringent rules in US also. Everybody does not get an ECMO. So if
you can add passion next to that.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. They start where you stop. Where we see the patient is gone. I have seen many results abroad where they have taken a patient with 8%, 10% ejection fraction, and we have seen the patient playing very well. So this is 25 years of story of efforts of ECMO. So in short, I just want to take to you one more message. The message is, you have to stay ahead of the problem. That is very important. You have to foresee things. You have to deal with emergency. You have to be a firefighter. You have to be a commando, and you have to remain ahead of the problem. If you remain ahead of the problem, you are a successful ECMO doer. So this is what I just want to show you. This is just key. And this person foresees a problem. He stays ahead of the problem. If you foresee a problem in an ECMO and you stay ahead of the problem, you will land up in doing a successful ECMO. So this was in short about my concepts and the role and the time of any mechanical circulatory support, including ECMO, into heart failure, or you can say into a cardiac case, whether MI or without MI, maybe myocarditis, maybe sepsis or whatever. This is what I am trying to say. He is going through problems, but he is staying ahead of the problem. If you foresee things and you make changes ahead of the problem, you will make a successful ECMO. That everybody is saying, do in time, foresee things. If you get alert after the damage is already shown its effect, then it is a lost battle. So only message is remain ahead of the problem. You will have a successful